Hi everybody, I'm Phil Montgomery. I'm the General Manager of the Microsoft Security Go-to-Market. I've recently joined Microsoft after 20 plus years in the security industry, and today I'm here talking to the Microsoft Security Partner of the Year. So drum roll please. And I'd like to introduce Chris Johnston, who's the CEO of Bulletproof. Now I know Chris is based up in Canada, but Bulletproof is a worldwide company, offering services all around the world. So Chris, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to speak with you today and see where things go in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, security is obviously a hugely important and growing area for our customers. We've all seen attacks like SolarWinds. We've seen the Colonial Pipeline. How would you say your customers are feeling about security?
I think that customers, fit into two categories probably. There's those that are concerned in making the right investments where they need to secure their business. And there's still a cohort that's kind of oblivious to it, if I'm honest. Believe they'll never be an attack target. So we spent a lot of time talking to those folks, just trying to educate them on, the risks that are, inherent in the world now, and how they actually could very well be a target. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely a worldwide problem, and I note at the recent summit in Geneva between world leaders that cyber was a topic of discussion. So clearly top of mind for all our customers around the world. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about Bulletproof and your relationship with Microsoft?
From Bulletproof's perspective, we're a 20-year company focused on security since our inception. In the early days, we were focusing on security consulting around external threats, but even then it wasn't as prevalent obviously as it is today. Along the way, as we became a Microsoft partner, we were obviously heavily into the consulting business. That's what Microsoft partners were. And as Microsoft moved to the cloud, we built up MSP services, and then we also built up an MSSP service. And the relationship with Microsoft has been great throughout the years, but I would say the last 3 or 4 years it's really accelerated as Microsoft got, extremely serious about security.
So what are the key services that you offer to your customers, and how do you make use of Microsoft offerings within that?
As it relates to security specifically, we have the belief, if you will, that security or SecOps is not an insourceable service for the majority of the client base. So unless you're very large and are fortunate to have budget and appetite to properly recruit, staff, retain security operations in-house, most customers are going to have to look to the market, look to a trusted partner. And we base our strategy on that. So we build a managed Microsoft security service called Bulletproof 365 Enterprise. And we spend our time explaining to customers how Microsoft is getting it right from a security stack perspective and how we can provide all the value of that investment in licensing from an MSSP service from a trusted partner like us.
Great. I liked how you talked about that only the largest companies can afford to build SOCs. So what you're really doing is taking Microsoft technologies, but you're wrapping all the services, the delivery, the end-to-end solution, and you're offering it to the rest of the market, which is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, tools are tools, right? And at the end of the day, there needs to be a service component of that. And that's the part that I think is the biggest perhaps aha in security, whether it be for Microsoft or Microsoft customers. There are very few times in our history has there been anything that Microsoft has come to market with that isn't insourceable, if you will, that there isn't a training plan or knowledge transfer from a deployment partner where a customer can gain that knowledge and then manage that service or manage those applications in-house. Security has changed that whole dynamic just because of the specific skill set, the requirement for staffing for 7/24/365. It's made it extremely difficult to think about insourcing. So we leverage all the value in the Microsoft tools with our security analyst, our threat hunting specialist, and our incident response team at our security operations centers to provide that fractional service to the customer base. And I think that's the biggest point. This is not another situation where we can buy tools, do a little bit of training, and have our teams perfectly capable of protecting us around the clock, around the year.
And you talked about that strong approach. In your Partner of the Year submission, you had a very strong customer case study. We won't mention the customer name, but how would you relate that to that customer story?
From our perspective, the biggest decision we made a few years ago, after being in the security business for 20 years, being in the business of providing MSSP services with other tools, non-Microsoft tools, we saw a unique opportunity to provide a better service in the platform, if you will. So we made the decision to build a service around the Microsoft stack, right from endpoint to SIEM. And we went about our work of evangelizing that in the market. But what that decision a few years ago meant that was we were going to be loyal first to the platform approach because we believed in it. We looked at all the tools that were available and designed a service with the best of those components, not just a fractional part of it. And it's a challenge because we run into a lot of people in the market that believe still in that best of breed procurement model where you would go to the Gartner Magic Quadrant and you'd pick your best solution, best of breed, and you'd have 12 different products, 12 integration points, 12 contracts to manage. We believed in a better way forward, or we saw a better way forward with Microsoft. So as we got into the market, we ran into a lot of friction, as you can imagine, because our customers grew up in a best of breed world. A lot of the people that are influencing them, and there's a lot of competition in the security market. It's really mature. But we are sticking to our guns. We believe it's a better way. And the example you referred to was a significant size customer that was looking at two options: one, all in on Microsoft and us as an MSSP provider with our Bulletproof 365 enterprise service, and another option that was a collection of, let's say, best of breed tools. And they asked us to be their MSSP or provide a proposal to be their MSSP in a best of breed model. And it was quite honestly contradictory to what we believe and what we've been evangelizing and what we've been driving in the market. So we politely, respectfully declined to bid the multi-vendor option, and they saw that as a differentiator. They kind of saw it as, you told us you wouldn't take our money if we didn't follow your advice. So we put the right way to do things above, potentially just making a profit, which was obviously very impactful in that situation.
Yeah, fantastic. And I liked how you talked about the core differentiation of Microsoft in security, in that there are plenty of point solution providers out there that secure just one part of the customer environment. Microsoft's greatest differentiation that it brings, as you said, is the end-to-end solution. And it sounds like that with the customer we're talking about, that is what resonated with them. With adding in, of course, the services, the MSSP capabilities from Bulletproof. So, putting the best of both worlds together.
The statement that we often get into is the automated response capabilities across the entire platform, right from endpoint, identity, the compliance feature set into Azure Sentinel. That's the whole ballgame. We're talking seconds versus minutes and weeks and days of containing threats. And we're spending a fair amount of years in, let's call it traditional MSSP business, where we're doing log ingestions and, correlating and looking for anomalies and, raising the red flag or flashing the red light. That's a tough business to drive and value for the customer. But what we're able to do in the Microsoft platform is go beyond that with the SOAR capabilities and the response capabilities and actually contain a threat instead of waking a customer up in the middle of the night because we're just ingesting alerts as opposed to actually having actionable capabilities in their environment. We're able to advise them in the morning what threats were presented, what the containment process was, and what they, as their core IT team, should go look at that day, kind of thing. So the value for the customer is orders of magnitude higher than anything we would have been able to provide in a best of breed traditional SOC world.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this discussion, Chris, and I think we've both had over 20 years experience in the security space, and I've joined Microsoft because the problem has never been larger. And because we have that end-to-end capability, and Microsoft has all these pieces working together to solve end-to-end, but we need partners like Bulletproof, to wrap that services, to wrap that end-to-end solution around it.
What served us the best is, picking our horse, getting serious about, Microsoft as your security partner, and then obviously building a service that, supports the customers holistically. And challenging them when they, want to divert back to that, what I would call a legacy best of breed mindset now. That's the hard part, but that's where we need to play. Microsoft security partners have the opportunity to actually support the entire security platform and portfolio for a customer and have that entire visibility. But it's hard work. You got to go, if you don't have the skill set, you've got to go find it, and you've got to be real serious about building a practice that, you know, is going to take some investment up front. This is not something that you can, again, build off the corner of your desk. But I do believe it's absolutely critical that we, you know, grow the Microsoft MSSP community so that we can solve this problem en masse for, you know, the customers of the world.
So Chris, you're relatively new to the MISA program, and that's the Microsoft Intelligent Security Association. You know, how are you finding the program? You know, what are your thoughts there?
You know, we were really excited to become part of MISA. From our perspective, as loyal and focused as we are in security, it was getting access to security roadmaps through monthly calls. We also have access to Microsoft's top security professionals attending those calls. So that's been a great experience for our key security professionals at Bulletproof. As well, the association creates additional awareness for Bulletproof and exposure through the MISA events and the MISA portal. So we've been really happy about it. It's been a great experience for us so far, and really glad Microsoft is kind of leaning in and obviously bringing, you know, like-minded security partners from around the world together.
Clearly, there's a lot of resources for partners starting out to go out and look at. I'm not going to recap them here. Yeah, we wanted to hear your words.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity today, and as always, thanks for the partnership.
Thanks again, Chris, and thanks again to Bulletproof. We appreciate you being such a great Microsoft partner.